Hey, welcome to davidshurter.com. This is your host, David Shurter, where I am out trying to give survivors a voice and a venue so that we can actually be heard. I have a great show for you. I have two individuals from the Shatter Boys UK. The Shatter Boys, they deal with the sexual abuse of men. And before I get involved with that, I just wanted to give a few statistics. I went online, and being a sexual abuse survivor, as obviously a male myself, this conversation will be very dear to me because there are very few resources, if any, in America for men who have been sexually abused. In fact, there is this common misconception in at least America, and I'm starting to find out that it's not just in America, it's everywhere, that men can't be sexually abused. If we end up in a sexual situation that is not to what we want, people just look at us, be quiet. You got lucky. And I personally do not feel so lucky. And I know that there are a lot of men out there who have been in this situation, who were either abused as boys or even as men who did not feel lucky. And so this 1 in 6 site, it's 1in6.org, and they gave statistics. The 1 in 6 is that 1 man out of 6 men is sexually abused. That's an extremely high number. And the problem is that there's no major statistics out there. In 2005, a study was conducted by the U.S. Center for Disease Control, and they reported that 16 males were sexually abused by the age of 18. In a 2003 national study said that 14.2% of men were sexually abused. And a 1998 study concluded there are problems with sexual abuse of men because it's not only common, but it is also underreported, underrecognized, and undertreated. And a 1996 study in Boston said that 18% of men were sexually abused. But they also give it with a caveat why these are probably underestimates. Because males who have experienced such abuse are very likely to disclose that abuse, especially if their perpetrators are females. And that is also another misconception, that women cannot be abusers. Let me assure you, my stepmother was one of my main abusers, and women are just as capable of being perpetrators as men are. And they also say that 16% of men with documented histories of sexual abuse, which was documented by social service agencies, which basically they said it was very serious, considered themselves to have been sexually abused, compared to 64% with documented history of the same study. So a man can go through the same thing that a woman can go through, but only 16% of the men will admit that they were abused. The problems that we're seeing is that men have a higher propensity to have symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. Alcoholism and drug use are almost completely interlinked with sexual abuse for boys. Suicidal thoughts and suicide attempts, just as it is with women. Problems with intimate relationships, and you usually see an underachievement at school or work. And so that was 1 in 6. And then I also read an article on slate.com, and it says that new study reveals that men are sexually assaulted. And they basically asked 40,000 households about rape and sexual violence. And 38% of those crimes were against men. So men are not only being sexually abused, but when we think about domestic violence, we always have a tendency to think about women, and yet men are as a high propensity for domestic violence as well. And when we think about rape, especially in America, they are coming out with statistics now to say that men are being raped in some places at a higher ratio than women are. And so this whole misconception that men cannot be sexually abused, that men cannot be raped, that if you're a guy and you find yourself in a sexual situation, even if it's undesirable, you're kind of expected to just go with it because you're a guy, you're getting lucky. And so, again, I really don't believe that anybody who's in this situation, I don't believe that anybody who comes away feeling raped also comes away feeling lucky. That I think it's just common sense. And so now I asked the gentleman that I'm going to be talking to this morning to give me a bio. And so Shatter Boys UK is a group of men who have come together because they have had enough of being silenced by taboos that exist in society's myths that exist, and the universal misconception that this doesn't happen to boys and men. We came together because we knew we would be stronger together as survivors, and unity was key, a collective voice that needed to smash this thing apart. We knew from our own experiences that there is a distinct lack of social services for adult male survivors of childhood sexual abuse and adult male rape. This has to change as people are dying out there, and we knew our peers through talking, or they've been taking overdoses and suicide because they had nowhere to go. We decided to plant peer support groups across the UK to support. I may have lost my guess. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, we're here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just saw an exclamation point. We are about supporting men to empower themselves to move forward with their lives and have a voice. We understand unity is the answer. We aim to plant peer support groups across the UK in areas where there is no support, for which there are many. There are many survivors out there, and there's no support. So would you please welcome my two guests from Shatter Boys UK. Welcome, gentlemen. Good morning. I guess it's not morning for you guys.
Yeah, tea time.
So let's just start. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves and give us a little bit of background of what got you involved with this and what exactly are you guys doing?
Right, okay. To kind of sort of make sense of the whole situation and how we kind of sort of come about and stuff is I'd like to share my story with you and anybody who's listening, and John would like to sort of share his story as well because it kind of ties in to sort of how we got started in the first place. Because if I talk about my stuff, then it probably kind of makes sense, if you know what I mean. So if you're okay with that, that's what I'll do.
Oh, please. I mean, please tell you whatever however you guys feel that you guys know how to explain what you're doing so much better than I would. So this is your venue. You guys just lead it and I'll follow along and ask questions along the way. So feel free.
All right. Okay. So I would like to start off with vulnerability. Really, because that's kind of sort of how it all started. So when me personally, when I was 18 months old, my mum left me. She left me. What kind of sort of happened is I spoke to my auntie about it, and she said my auntie used to come round to the house on a Saturday and get me up and take me on the park and stuff because my mum was really lazy and wasn't looking after me properly. Then one weekend, she's come round to the house. She's got to the house. She's opened the door, and she comes to the house, and the front door's kind of ajar. So she's walked into the house. She's walked into the front room. The front room's bare. There was all animals spray painted on the wall, like a kind of zoo type thing. and there was a note on the fireplace. So she's read this note on the fireplace, and it's just said, like, I've gone. So this was on the Saturday. I think she'd left on, I think it was a Monday. So she's thought, where the hell's Daniel? So she's like gone in the kitchen, I'm not there. She's gone upstairs and she's found me in the cot. So I was like 18 months old at this time. So I've been left for like nearly a week on my own with no food. She said your nappy rash was that bad we couldn't tell whether you was a boy or a girl. So I got took up to the hospital. It's a bit unclear what kind of sort of happened about that, because I've heard different stories from different family members. But I thought I'd gone into care at that time. But my auntie told me that she took me on and kind of looked after me for like a short while. But then my granddad and grandma got custody of me. So I've kind of like been split between families because my dad was away in the army. So both sets of grandparents got custody of me. So I've got a poor side and a well-off side. So the poor side, I used to live with them from Monday to Friday. Then I'd live with my granddad and my grandma, who was like well off, at the kind of sort of weekend from like Friday night to Monday. So what people didn't know, my granddad, who was like a sort of upstanding member of the community, he was a magistrate, respected by a lot of people. He was a philanthropist. He owned a company called Warburton's, which is like sort of they make bread. It's a household name over here in the UK. It's like one of the biggest bread companies in the UK, and it's and they sort of they value themselves on the like kind of sort of family values and stuff. So, but what people didn't know at the time, that my granddad Thomas Warburton was a predatory paedophile. So what my mum had done is basically, and I hold her kind of sort of responsible for this. She left me with a paedophile, and what my granddad was doing at weekends, he was abusing me. So that, from what I can remember, that went on from 5 to 10, ages 5 to 10. It started off with it'd be like kind of sort of bedtime, and he'd say, right, Daniel, it's time for bed, go and have a bath. So I'd go upstairs, I'd go into the bathroom, and what he'd do is he'd come in and he'd say, right, you need to clean yourself properly. So you need to pull your foreskin back on your willy, and you need to like kind of sort of clean behind that. And like kind of like sort of not going into too much detail and stuff, because I don't want to give him any kind of sort of glory in a way. What escalated from then is where he'd be like coming into the bathroom, he'd be masturbating me. It like kind of escalated where he'd like come in with no clothes on, he'd start messing with himself and masturbating himself, then start masturbating over me when I was in the bath. So this went on till I was like 10 years old. So my granddad never said to me, he never said to me, if you say anything about this, I'll kill you. He never said anything like that. What he did is he bought me gifts. He showered me with gifts. So what I learned later in life, what he'd done is he was grooming me. He was grooming me, and he was buying me silence. Now you might think, why at 10 did it stop? The reason it stopped when I got to 10 is because what was happening is I was getting to know me kind of sort of body more. When I go to, friends' houses, and I'd see like a normal kind of like sort of family dynamic and stuff, I started to think, something's not right here, what he's doing. And he was getting older and I was getting faster, and I used to leg it up them stairs. And what I started doing the first time, I legged it up the stairs and I locked the door. And he's came up and he's tried the door, walked away, and never did it again to me since then. So the game was up for him then, because he knew and I knew what he was doing was wrong. So like I say, but what that did to me is it damaged me a lot. It kind of sort of smashed my boundaries, really. So I turned into one of them kids who'd never say no. So if someone had said to me, "Oh, Daniel, do this, do that," I'd do it to be accepted and for a sense of belonging, really, because I wasn't kind of sort of happy at home. And in that time, from like 5 to 10, my behaviour was really bad. In terms like sort of, I was running away from home. I was getting into all kinds of trouble, but nobody ever sat me down and said, "Daniel, what is up with you? Why are you behaving like this?" Now, maybe if somebody did, maybe they'd have spoke out at a kind of sort of earlier age, but nobody ever did. All they said is like, I was just seen as a little shit, basically. So I kind of took that persona on because I could kind of sort of hide behind that by being naughty. It was like sort of disassociating from myself in a sense.
Well, it's in a lot of ways, it's victim blaming, and you can't help but go through this kind of abuse and not have what's called the Stockholm syndrome, where you identify with your abuser more than you do yourself.
Yeah.
And sorry, I didn't want to jump in. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. It's okay. So, like I say, when I sort in a sense, I feel like I slipped through the net, and I feel like institutions failed me as well. Because of what my mum did to me and how she left me. Maybe there should have been some social services involvement there, like kind of keeping an eye on me and stuff. So if I just kind of like sort of go on with the kind of sort of truth, what happened. So when like I say, my boundaries was smashed. My sexual boundaries was smashed. I was a very confused young boy. Then at 10, I had a babysitter, a female babysitter, who was looking after me, who was quite a bit older than me. And I know it's not classed in the law in the UK as rape, but I class it as rape because that day she sexually assaulted me, raped me. She took something away from me. And she did that quite a few times on a number of occasions. And the reason I didn't speak out about that is because it ties in nicely what you were saying before, because as I've got older and realised kind of sort of what she was doing to me and stuff, I thought, if I say to my mates that my babysitter has had sex with me, bearing in mind I was 10 at the time, they'd say, "Get in there, lad. You should think yourself lucky." One of those things. So, society's views on that from a male perspective, that's the kind of stuff that I thought I'd hear. So I thought, I'm not talking about that. So as kind of like sort of time's gone on, I've gone to secondary school then. And like I said before, my behaviour was like kind of sort of off the scale, because I couldn't sit with myself. My head was like a washing machine on spin cycle all the time. So I needed something to shut my head up, because I put stuff in a cupboard. Them cupboard doors was bulging. With all my issues. So managed to get through school to like 15, still having contact with my granddad. He's still buying me gifts, the latest trainers, latest computers, holidays, all that kind of stuff, buying me silence. So at 15, I was at school and I was friendly with a girl at school, and she had a boyfriend who was quite a bit older than her, like nearly 10 years older than her. And he came up to school when I was at school because he didn't like me being friends with her, and he was going to stab me. So I've gone outside the school gates. I'm 15 at this time. A guy's pulled up in a car, nice car, and he's gone, "Quick, come here." He went, "This lad's going to stab you, blah, blah, blah." He went, "I'll look after you, get in my car." So I was like, scared and stuff, got in his car, and he drove me home. Then he said, like, "I'll pick you up in the morning, take you to school, make sure you're safe and stuff." Then what happened is, when he was like sort of driving home, he'd start like sort of toy fighting with me, wrestling with me, that kind of stuff. That's how it started. That's how the touching started. So he'd start touching my leg and all that kind of stuff. But I felt kind of trapped because he was like sort of protecting me and looking after me. You know, so I felt kind of sort of trapped in a way. And then he went to then he said, "Oh, I like teach you how to drive." So he did sort of teach me how to drive, but he'd keep like touching me willy when I was like driving and stuff, but doing it as like a game, that messing about, that like, "Oh, lads, do this," that kind of stuff. Like I say, he was a lot older than me. He introduced me to drugs. So that was part of another kind of sort of grooming process. So he introduced me to heroin and crack, and got me a habit on heroin and crack. So I ended up leaving home and ended up living with him. And, you know, school didn't say anything. None of my parents said anything or thought it was like kind of odd. So he got me. Basically what he was doing is he was spiking me, doing all kinds of things to me. You know, when I was like sort of under the influence and like off my head, like woke up with a sore bum like a few times. But the thing is, I was like kind of trapped in a situation. So I had a drug habit. I was totally dependent on him for it. He was a drug dealer as well. So I was quite frightened of him as well, to be honest with you. He used to like sort of, you know, he'd come in the bedroom at night time when I was asleep. He'd like lift the sheets up and start messing with me. You know, all kinds of stuff was going on. So that led to eventually I ended up going to prison for drug related offences, and that's how I managed to get away from him. But my life had like kind of sort of spiraled out of control then. So I spent like numerous times in rehab. I've lost count of how many times I've been in flipping rehab. But the rehab never worked because I hadn't dealt with my issues. The final rehab that was in, I went in there. I went into the rehab of like kind of. I'll explain how I got in there. So how I got in there, my granddad said to me, he said, everybody needs counselling at some point in their life. So he knew, and I knew kind of what he was talking about, because like he knew that I knew what he'd done to me. So he was quite ill at this time. So he gave me £7,000. I got myself into a rehab. I went into a real strict one because I thought, you know what, I'm going to the strictest one because I need this kind of knocking out of me. So I've got into rehab, and I stopped. You know, the drugs are like kind of coming out of my system, and I started to get flashbacks. So I'm sat in this group one day, and the counsellor starts going to me, look at what you're doing to your granddad. He's really ill. You're spending all his money. And from that moment when he said that, bearing in mind I buried this stuff like pretty deep, it started with a photograph in my mind. So it's a photograph of me at the bottom of the stairs, like a Polaroid picture, then like bump, a picture of me at the top of the stairs, then bump, me in the bathroom, then bump, my granddad in the bathroom, then bump, like both of us like no clothes on, like bump, him masturbating over me. Then it went into a film then, playing in my mind, and I just totally broke down. So what I know then now as is, you know, flashbacks, but I didn't know what was happening at the time because I'd never dealt with this stuff. So from that breakdown, I developed a stutter as well, and this stutter lasted for 3 months. It was like kind of the oddest thing. So I've come out of the rehab, and my granddad said, right, you need a holiday. So he sent me to Ibiza. Now, who sends somebody to Ibiza who's just come out of flipping rehab? Do you know what I mean?
Okay, explain what Ibiza is.
Oh,
It's America.
Oh, sorry. So Ibiza is a party island. So it's a Spanish island where people go to party and take drugs, young people. You know,
not the place that you would actually send someone who just got out of rehab. You know, that would be like taking someone and driving them right to a bar and buying them their first drink.
Yeah, exactly. So I've gone to Ibiza, and I went with my partner at the time. I told my partner what my granddad had done to me, and I said to her, right, I said, I'm going to confront him when I get back. I said, I don't want to do it on the telephone because I want to sit there with him face to face. I want to look him in the eye and say, I know what you did to me, and it was wrong. And I wanted to see the reaction on his face. Comes back from holiday, pulls up outside my house, gets out of the taxi, gets my bags in and stuff. All of a sudden, there's a knock at the door, and it's my uncle, my granddad's son. And he said, Daniel, I've got something to tell you. I went, what? And he went, your granddad died when you was on holiday. So it was like, right, kind of what do I do with this now? And what I did with that is, I started taking more drugs. So my uncle's like gone and stuff. So, I've gone straight back on the drugs. And what's happened is, my granddad used to collect. I thought, because he died, I thought, right, what do I do with this now? He used to collect banknotes, and he collected them for years, and like coupons from like Nazi concentration camps, loads of kind of stuff like that. And he had 6 books of them. I took 3 books. I wasn't sure how much it was worth. Took them into an antique dealer's, and I sold them in for £300. And I got absolutely off my face on it, because I thought he spent his lifetime building them up and collecting them. It was like kind of a revenge thing. It was me getting my own back on him. And like I say, I sold them dead cheap. So my uncle's come round the house, and he said, we've been going through all the stuff for the will and what have you, and we've noticed these 3 books are missing for banknotes. Do you know where they are? I said, yeah. I said, I took them and I sold them, and I said, I got off my face. And he was like, why? And I said, do you want me to tell you why? And I told him everything what my granddad had done. And he's never spoke to me again since. They was in the newspaper, these other 3 books. They've been raffled off, and they went for £75,000, the other 3 books. So, in a sense, I'd sold them for so little, but it's probably a good thing that I didn't sell them for what they were, because I'd probably be dead by now, to be honest with you.
Well, listening to your story, and everything that you said, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like not only were you wanting to take revenge out on your grandfather, but you were taking revenge out on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I think is the worst thing about the abuse, especially for guys, because we come away from it believing that we did it, that it's somehow our fault. And that's not just typical of men. That's typical of women as well.
Yeah.
But then you have a lot of people, people who won't listen, and just the question that I have, and you don't really have to answer this on air, but I would be willing to bet in this whole situation you were not the only person that he abused.
Exactly.
Your mother probably left you with him because she was afraid of him, because she went through the same, because pedophiles, it's not about sex, it's about exploitation.
Power and control.
Power, control, and exploiting. When you're an adult and you're having sex with a child, the only thing that child has to offer you is sex, because they certainly can't give you any, adult conversation. They can't talk to you about their life experiences. There's, in a normal relationship, you share things, you have things to share in life. And when it comes down to adults having sex with kids, those kids have nothing to share and shouldn't be expected to have, I'm just so sorry. I know it sounds trite, because I hate it when people tell me that. Oh, I'm so sorry what happened to you. But, dude, your story is telling. It's your own personal experience, and yet so many of us have experienced the same thing, especially telling family members, and then those family members turn against you just for telling the truth.
Yeah. But the plot kind of thickens, David, to be honest with you. So, where was you up to? What was you up to?
You were up to your uncle, and that's the last contact you had with him.
Yeah, so that was the last contact I had with my uncle. My head's like kind of falling off at this point, to be honest with you. And I resigned to the fact, I thought, right, I'm really rubbish at recovery, But what I am good at is I was good at taking drugs and I was good at committing crime. So I said to myself, right, what I'll do is I will be the best drug user that I can be. And I made that my goal, and I got into the top. I got into the top 5 most wanted shoplifters in Manchester. Which was a pretty good achievement at the time, to be honest with you. Some people throw themselves into work and become workaholics. I kind of thrown myself into kind of sort of committing crime, because what came with that is my peers that I was doing with, it became like a family. So I had a sense of belonging, even though it was really unhealthy, and taking drugs was a really unhealthy coping mechanism. The taking drugs saved my life in a sense, because if I hadn't been taking drugs for that length of time, from like 15 up until like 32, 33, I think it was, I'd have killed myself. So what we call it is like sort of a maladaptive coping mechanism. It got me through some tough times, to be honest with you, but I probably could have chose a healthier one, but I didn't. So as time's gone by a little bit, I got myself a drug worker, and eventually I thought, right, Daniel, you need to get your shit together. So I got this drug worker, started like sort of talking to him, and he was the first person who said to me, Daniel, what is up with you? Why are you behaving like this? And he told me a little bit about his stuff and what had happened to him. He'd been abused himself, and the weight was like kind of lifted off my shoulders, because I thought, I'm not being nasty or anything, but I thought, thank God for that. Because I thought it was just me, because nobody else had ever spoke to me about that. And that is the day that I started on the path to reclaiming my life, basically. So got some support off him. And he was also starting a service for survivors of abuse. So that kind of sort of helped me, like kind of sort of up to a point and stuff. So I really enjoyed doing this, seeing people kind of getting empowered. So I thought, what we'll do is start.
Wait a minute, guys. We're catching every third word.
All right. Okay. Is that better?
A little bit.
All right. Is that better now?
Yeah, that's better. There was a buzzing noise too, and I think it's just the Skype connection because you guys are in the UK, and so
okay. Yeah. So that day, I got empowered, basically, from listening to somebody else who'd been through a similar thing, and had sorted the life out. And I took great strength from that. So I thought maybe it's. So I started delivering. I started going to a group first myself, getting some group support. Kind of sort of built myself up from there. Got some training because I had like a poor education. I did. I got my certificate in counselling, and I thought what I want to do is I want to give back for what I kind of sort of received, basically. And I made a promise that day that I would help other people. Because the thing is, with abuse, whether it be childhood abuse or adult male rape, for me personally, it doesn't do bank holidays, it doesn't do Christmas, it doesn't do summer holidays. It's a constant thing that's there. So, I live and breathe this stuff on a kind of like sort of daily basis. I'm not saying that as like sort of a victim, survivor, and take great breath, to be honest with you. So I started delivering to police about how to deal with survivors.
Guys, we're having. Hopefully, Ed is listening so he can grab this because I know it's the Skype connection.
All right.
And so the thing I wanted to say that while you were just with everything is that, becoming, wanting to be the best shoplifter or the best drug addict that you can. I think that, at least with me for a long time, and we talked a little bit about it this morning, is that sexual abuse takes away your self-identity. And anybody who only identifies themselves as a sex toy, which is really easy when you've been sexually abused. Nobody wants to live with that kind of identity. And so we have, it's totally understandable. And your story, I want to reiterate for the listeners out there that your story is not atypical. What is atypical is that you actually found someone to give you support and you were actually able to get out of where you were at. Because men, for the most part, we end up dead or in jail. We can't take the abuse and we self-destruct faster than women. And so, okay, go ahead and talk. I want to make sure I can hear you guys.
Right. Can you hear me properly now?
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you. Go. Please continue.
Right. Okay. So I was delivering training to the police. Which is a massive turnaround from being chased and hunted down by the police to actually delivering training to the police. That's a big kind of like sort of change in my life. So I was delivering this training. I hadn't reported to the police at this time because I didn't trust the police as far as I could throw them. So I'm delivering this training and it all went really well and stuff. Talked about my story but didn't mention any names of the abusers, which was like part of the training. Then the detective rings me up like the next day to give me some feedback on the training. And he went, so what they was doing is they was writing comments on post-it notes and sticking them on a board, what they thought of the training. And he went, Daniel, he said, the majority of them post-it notes, he said, I'm really concerned, said, why has Daniel not reported to the police? Like I say, there's a few reasons I not reported to the police because I didn't think they'd do anything about it or could do anything about it. And I didn't trust them because of my past dealings with them. Even though I was like sort of working with them, there's still some of that stuff left over. My granddad, like I say, was a magistrate as well. So he was in a position of power and authority. So I didn't trust people who was in a position of authority. But to be fair, this detective was a really nice guy. And quite supportive. He said, I'll take the report off you, Daniel. So I said, right, okay. So I've gone into the police station, give him the initial report, got passed over to the Public Protection Incident Unit where you do your video interview. So I reported my granddad, I reported the babysitter, and I reported the guy who abused me, who sexually exploited me when I was 15. And the detective come back and he initially went to speak to my uncle, who now runs Warburton's Bread. He's taken over from my granddad dying. So he spoke to my uncle and he said, Daniel's made an allegation of abuse against your dad. And my uncle said, I've not a clue what you're talking about. He went, he's never mentioned anything like that to me before. We'd had a big blazing row in the street about it because of the banknotes going missing and stuff when I told him why. So my uncle denied all knowledge. So like the case got no further action through lack of evidence. So something that I missed out before is I'd never met my mum until a few years ago. Because she disappeared. So what's kind of sort of happened with her? I've met her, and she's like said, why are you so messed up on drugs and all that? I said because you probably wasn't there to like look after me and give that. I said you left me with a paedophile. Your dad told her what had happened to me and stuff. She went, Daniel. She went, I've heard that story before. I said, what do you mean? She went, Ross. Which my uncle, my granddad's son, he's told me that story before, exact same situation with the bathroom and stuff. So I thought she'd left because she'd been abused. She may well have, but it didn't kind of like seem like it from what she was saying. She was talking about, my uncle. So, like I say, I reported to the police and stuff, and my family had just all ignored me. The Warburton side of the family turned their back on me, and and my uncle would go around the family saying, "Oh, Daniel's making this stuff up about his granddad. Don't speak to him." So after that, I thought, right, I'm not giving up on this. I thought I will fight this till the death. I will get the truth out there if it with my last breath, if it kills me. Because like I say, what was really frustrating is, the family business is built on family values, and that's not what goes on behind closed doors in that Warburton household that I was living in. So like I say, and it's quite triggering because they've got adverts on TV. There's Warburton's vans driving about all over the place, so it's like constantly
Every shop.
Yeah, in my face. The bread's in every shop. I
will tell you though, Daniel, you
Yeah.
never know what's going to happen in the future.
Absolutely.
Because my older sister, Kathy, was the first person who came forward talking about what happened in our family.
Yeah.
And her main adversary, the one who stood up against her the hardest and the most furious, was myself. I fought my sister, not because I knew what she was telling was the truth. I was desperate for her to shut up because I was not able to face what happened in the past for a long time. I mean, you never forget, but what people don't realize is, no, you never forget, but that's not for lack of trying. Because you spend every day trying to forget, and drugs, alcohol, overeating, overworking, anything you can to escape that. And so the problems that you had that you've just talked about with your uncle, I don't think they have so much to do with you as they do with him personally, not being able to handle what happened to him personally.
Yeah.
And who knows, anytime he might look at you and realize, wow, that Daniel, he was really screwed up and now he's actually doing some really good work, and it's because he faced his trauma.
Yeah.
And sorry, I just had to jump in and
No, that's okay. So I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the national newspapers and get somebody to take this story on. So we live in Manchester. So I went to Manchester Evening News, told them about it, and I wanted to expose the lies that was kind of going on in my family. With them like sort of lying about what had happened, saying I was lying and stuff. So so the Manchester Evening News took on the story. So I wanted to get my granddad's name in the paper and the business name because of because the family was all covering up and stuff. So there was a load of toing and froing between Warburton's legal team and Manchester Evening News' legal team. I managed to get the article in the newspaper, but what came from that was my uncle's solicitor sent a letter to the Manchester Evening News saying that I've been trying to blackmail my granddad for years, saying that I'm going to go to the newspapers. If I'm going to go to what it said is that I said I was going to go to the newspapers and tell them about the abuse if you don't give me X amount of money, which is total crap because he was giving me money for free anyway. I didn't have to do that. He was giving me money to silence me. If I was blackmailing him, I'd say I wouldn't be bothered, to be honest with you. But his solicitors have put this in writing. So originally, when the police have spoke to him, and he said, "Oh, we don't know anything about this." No, he's conflicting with his story that he's originally said. So I've tried my damnedest over since May to get this letter from the Manchester Evening News, and they're not giving it me. So I've gone to the police. I've gone back to the police. I spoke to the police and said, "Listen, there's a piece of evidence to prove that he was lying." The detective said to me, "What are you talking about?" He went, "I didn't say to you that your uncle said he knew nothing about it. He said, I said to you that he had said that my mum had been trying to blackmail him for years, or she was going to go to the papers about the abuse. So what's kind of like, so there's like two kind of conflicting stories there. So I'm like trying my damnedest to kind of get this letter as a piece of evidence so they can reopen the case and look into it, because I believe that he's abused many more people, to be honest with you. So I'm just going through.
Isn't your story, I mean, kind of typical? I mean, I know it's typical in America. You go forward and you tell the police about any abuse, and they have a tendency to focus on the victim instead of the perpetrator. And instead of having to prove the crime, you're having to prove yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And they basically figure, well, as a victim, since you can't walk on water and you can't turn water into wine, then you must be a liar.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's pretty typical. And we're talking a large business here. I mean, a large, well-known business that certainly doesn't want that kind of publicity out there.
So the last time I checked, they was making 600 million a year turnover. So, and they've had Sylvester Stallone doing adverts from and stuff. So the last thing they want is little old me speaking out, talking about kind of what's gone on and discrediting the family name, really. But the issue is, I will not shut up. I will not go away until the kind of truth is out. Because what's kind of come out is, if my uncle and my mother knew about the abuse and it was happening to them, why have they left me under the care of a predatory paedophile? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I believe that's what they've done. And like I said, I'm not going off on a rant and stuff, but I will not stop till the truth is out there. If it takes my last breath, I will take them to the cleaners.
I think that's why they hate guys who come forward, because it's been my experience, we're way more aggressive. When we finally get to the point where we want this dealt with, we want it dealt with. And I'm the same way. I won't shut up. I'm instead of them chasing us around, it seems like you guys are chasing them around. They're trying to dodge you, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Turn the tables on the perpetrators.
Yeah, because we have took back power and control. That's what we've done. So that's where kind of sort of at the moment. I know I've talked for a long time, but it kind of ties in with what we're doing, and I'll come on to John now. Yeah. So what we are building is an army. Yeah, we're building an army of support for people, an army of survivors across the UK. We're still only small, but we counted the other day.
62. Yeah,
we're 62 strong at the moment, which is a nice little kind of sort of army of peer supporters. So at Shatter Boys, what we do is we're not a clinical service, we're a peer support service. We're experts by experience in delivering kind of mutual aid and peer support. So we do one-to-one peer support. We do group peer support. We do virtual support. We do prison support as well. We do family support as well. We're kind of like sort of building. And so in Manchester now, we've got our group established, a really strong group of strong men who are empowered and speaking out. The reason they're speaking out is to encourage others to come forward and reclaim their lives. That's what we do at Shatter Boys. When somebody comes to Shatter Boys, what it's like doing is it's like walking in at the shallow end of the pool. So what we will do is we will hold someone's hand till they feel strong enough to swim on their own.
That's it.
We do not claim to be able to solve everybody's problems, but what we do claim is we can offer that. It's like a kind of family in a sense, but a healthy one.
Support is so important in this. If we don't support each other, we end up feeling isolated.
Exactly.
And we crumble. It's amazing what you guys have done. And the fact that you have 62 men who are able to come forward and speak, that's it sounds like a small number, but as a guy, I know how big that number is and how much you have probably had to struggle to even get there.
Yeah, that's since February. So what's happened now is, so like I said, we've got the group established in Manchester. So now we're moving over to Liverpool next, to plant a group in Liverpool. So what we're doing is by empowering men, them empowering themselves by kind of coming to us. What we're going to do is we're going to plant support groups across the UK, and these groups have got to be free. They've got to be separate from services. So what's happening with some services, they'll set something up, they'll pull the funding, and it falls to bits. So how we work is we try and get everything for free, mate. Beg, borrow, or steal. So our group at the moment is running at Salford University, which they give the room for free. So we want a sustainable model. So when we set this group up in Liverpool, we'll train the lads, because we've already got lads waiting over there who want to access peer support. So what we'll do is we'll train them up to run the group, get the group running up in Liverpool, then we'll move on to the next location. So we've got like a 5-year plan.
Now, when you talk about training, can I ask, I mean, what does that involve? How do you guys do training? What do you focus on?
It's basically about inviting people along to group, and it's instilling confidence in them. You can see the confidence growing literally weekly. Give you an example. One guy, I won't give his name, but I haven't got permission. But he was very, very silent. His case didn't get enough evidence to go to court and whatnot, so that was a huge thing for him. And whereas he hadn't told any of his family, his friends, and he's a businessman, he has a small business, and he hadn't told anybody. And we start doing these videos, myself and Danny and Stephen and a few others. And just by doing the videos and exposing ourselves, if that's the right sort of phrase, this other person and all the others now nearly all have done videos, basically explaining their abuse, wherever that abuse may be. Generally, it's childhood sexual abuse and exploitation. And
I just a word of suggestion, because I thought about it. You illuminate yourselves. You do not expose yourselves. You are illuminating your issues. I started thinking about it and thought, no, expose yourself might not be the right.
Write that down, Danny. We're going to steal that. But basically, that's what we're doing. And with the confidence building, people now are in a position, victim to survivor, yeah. People now are in a position where they want to help other people and they want to take a stronger role within Shatter Boys. So as directors, if you like, because we're all associates of Shatter Boys, legally myself and Danny and Steve and another two are directors, but I mean that's just for the company, company paperwork. Basically we're all equal, and as the level of confidence grows, people are doing more stuff. They're helping out with the charity events, the fundraising, and all sorts of stuff. And all this sort of stuff that they're doing is all positive, and it's all about their abuse, but they're turning the negativity of the abuse into a positive thing. And the empowerment they're getting from their friends, their family, their wives, their partners, the people in the general public, like everyone in my area and everyone in England knows that I've been raped. Like there's no secret there. Like I've been in all the national newspapers, the media, TV, radio, whatever, stuff like this. So at the end of the day, without that sort of empowerment personally, I would be still a victim and not a survivor. Do you see?
Yep. And I would say that, I mean, you two sound like you've gone from surviving to actual thriving, which I think is what we all want to do. We don't want to stay victims, but we don't want to stay survivors either. We want to become thrivers.
Absolutely. But we know from personal experience that you need the support network in place. Yeah. Shall I tell you a little bit about my story, David?
I tell you what, I just got contacted. We're going to take a short break for about 4 minutes. And we're going to run an advertisement just so that everyone can just take a little break. And then we're coming straight back to you. And I want to hear your story, John. And you guys are doing awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
And so, Ed, if you want to, I know he's listening. So if you want to run that advertisement, that'll give enough people time for people to get a cup of coffee or go to the restroom or whatever you need to do. So.
And now a word from our sponsors. Did you know that 30% of all people on online dating websites and personal ads are either married or in a monogamous relationship? 30%. If you suspect that your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend may be cheating online, go to emailrevealer.com. Our online infidelity investigation. You give us their email address, and we could trace it back to online personal ads, dating sites, and social networks. We can even expand the investigation and find them cheating on escort service sites or even porn sites if they're registered to porn sites and swinger sites. So check out emailrevealer.com if you suspect your spouse is cheating, and check out our online infidelity investigation. William Ramsey is a producer here at the Opperman Report, and he's just come out with a new book, Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. Now, he just sent me a copy of this book. Oh boy, it's about 2 inches thick, and there's a chapter on just about everybody in this book that you can imagine. The Beatles, and Jack Parsons, everybody's in here. It's incredible. And I definitely recommend this book. There's a bunch of pictures in here, too, of all these people and different chapters and information. Anselm LaVey and people I've never heard of, too. There's a whole bunch in here. JFC Fuller. I don't know who he is. But it's great stuff by our producer here, William Ramsey. So check out Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. You can find it on Amazon.com, or you could find it in the OppermanReport.com bookstore. We have an urgent bulletin. It seems that the group Strawman is still on the loose. It has been confirmed that Strawman are Canadian, okay, and that authorities are asking people to stay indoors, lock your doors and windows until this group can be dealt with. You could find more information about this group of Canadians, at strawmanmusic.com. You can have your ad played here. Okay, we're looking for sponsors. Okay, in fact, we desperately need sponsors right now to take this show to the next level. So you can have your your ad played here, read live, like I'm doing now, so artfully. Or we can even work up a little jingle for you with some music and stuff like that and play it here. You have no idea how inexpensive it would be to have your ad played on the Opperman Report on 7 stations live Friday night, and another 7 stations live on Saturday night, plus replayed every day of the week on different stations, and then archived on YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and all different kinds of podcasts, Pod This and Podbean, all different kinds of places who archive the show for us. And on those archives, your ad would play indefinitely, forever. You also get a little banner on OppermanReport.com. You get a mention on the air. You get a little interview on the air, and all kinds of fun stuff if you sponsor Opperman Report. We have an opportunity to get this show on a major AM/FM station in California. We've been approved. So if you want to sponsor us into that, so incredibly inexpensive that your ad would be heard by a the range covers 5 million people in population, where your ad would be broadcast, and all these other stations would be thrown in for free. So really affordable prices to sponsor OppermanReport.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You can get a copy of that book at emailrevealer.com, or you can get a copy of that book now. It's back up on Amazon.com. How to Become a Successful Private Investigator by Ed Opperman. And this book has been updated a little bit from the previous book that we had that was available to our wonderful listeners.
Hey, this is Dave Shurter. Thank you for tuning in to davidshurter.com. My guests today are Daniel and John from Shatter Boys UK. I want to let everyone know that they do have a Facebook channel. It's Shatter Boys UK, and again that's SHATTER, Shatter Boys. And they have a lot of videos, a lot of information about their stuff on Facebook, and so feel free to check that out. And I have John is next. He's going to tell his story. And so, John, if you want to talk a little bit about your Facebook page, just to let people know what they're looking for, that would be great. Okay. And then let's just go right on into your story.
No worries. On the Facebook page, you'll find myself telling my story, not just about what actually happened to me, but in a way, my story is more about the criminal justice system and about my campaign work and stuff like that, and highlighting the faults within the criminal justice system, as well as some of the strengths as well. And I talk about the services a lot and the services that I received since the rapes, I should say. And yeah, so if people can have a look at that, they'll get a fuller understanding of what we're all about.
Thank you so much. So tell us your story, John. I mean, How did you get, what brought you to this, and how did you get involved? And
it's a very strange tale. I should start off by saying that myself and Danny, we actually met in group therapy, and 6 years ago, I was raped repeatedly. Over a long period of time. I was imprisoned, tortured, and suffered genital mutilation and the whole lot. I was raped in and out of consciousness, and I was left for dead, basically. The physical damage was huge. I had major plastic surgery on my face, and which was a godsend, actually. And it's more about the longer-lasting emotional damage, which has left me with PTSD, so chronic PTSDs, which I live with and I manage on a daily basis. But basically, I want to talk about vulnerability. I was 46. I'm 46 now, I beg your pardon. I was 47 tomorrow. Happy birthday, me. And 6 years ago, I was a very different person. I had a thriving business, a dog grooming business. I lived above the business, in an apartment above the business, and in a very nice area. I did lots of community work, lots of voluntary work, and lots and lots of stuff. I did normal sort of stuff. I was engaged to be married to my boyfriend at the time. And I think it's important to point out where I was vulnerability-wise, and I'm trying to make the connection here between child sexual abuse and adult male rape. People might not think there's a connection, but there certainly is. It's all about vulnerability. Without going into a big sad story, because I don't want to do that, I want to inspire people, but I need to touch on where I was. Basically, I had lost my partner, long-term partner, because basically one day he came home from the doctors and told me that he had HIV, and I found out later he'd had it for 5 years and he didn't tell me. So that left me going for HIV tests and all that sort of stuff. It might sound silly, but I'd lost my dog as well, a dog of 13 years. And those two things kind of coincided with me being in a business, having no partner all of a sudden, and having to do everything by myself. So I was generally exhausted, still working very, very hard. But emotionally, I was drained and I was vulnerable. And I was lonely, if I'm honest. I didn't have much time for social life. And certainly after losing your partner, you then lose the social network of friends that comes with that. So I was kind of isolated and kind of lonely, even though the outside person would think, oh, look at him, he's doing so well with his fancy car and his fancy business and whatever, his holidays and whatever. But anyway, one day I was working away in my dog grooming parlour, and it was one that's open to the public, so there's a big window at the front and there was no counters or anything, so the people can basically see that we're not hurting the dogs in any way, we're basically just doing the job properly. So it was exposed to the public, basically. And this young man, 20 years old, a black man from Jamaica, but of English Jamaican heritage, he walked by my shop one day and winked at me as I was walking away with the dogs. That was a Saturday. Then the following Saturday, saw nothing of him. I thought he was cute and all that, and he kind of made it clear he thought I was as well. And I must admit, I was attracted to him for a while, not long, but a while. And this next Saturday, he just walked into my shop and said hello and asked could he watch me working with my assistant at the time. So I said, yeah, I was quite flattered, if I'm honest. And I was going to a party that night at a friend's house, a small party, just a gathering. And I asked my friend Brian, who's since died, God rest him, could this Marlon come to the party? And he said, yeah. Now, this guy basically didn't go home. He stayed from the Saturday. I was at Dog Show the following day. He came to that with me. He was acting very, very strange. He was very odd, even though he put on a good show. And he started introducing me on literally our first date, if you want to call it that, as his boyfriend, which I thought was very strange, and so did all my friends. So there was something definitely not right about him. Anyway, he asked could he stay at mine for a couple of days because his flat was being decorated or whatever the excuse was. And I said, yeah, okay. But come Sunday, I thought it was odd that he didn't want to go home. Now, it turns out he was on the run from the police for grievous bodily harm. He basically mugged somebody in the street. And he was running from the police, but I didn't know any of this because he was lying about everything, lying about work. He didn't have a job and all that sort of stuff. He was actually getting up. He got up on the Monday morning to go to work and then came home and said he got shifts mixed up. But it was a load of lies. His life was just a lie. So anyway, I noticed some money going missing from where I kept it in the safe box. And initially I thought maybe it's just me, I've miscalculated or whatever. But then when it came to the Monday morning, it was rent day and it was £1,000, which is a lot of money. And there was £400 missing out of it. Now, the rapist clearly had addiction problems. He was constantly smoking weed and drinking constantly, it didn't stop. So I told him to go. This was on the Sunday night. And I said, you're not sharing my bed. Stay on the couch. You need to go. You need to go tomorrow. So he promised me he would go. I thought, fine. But I was frightened of him. He was quite aggressive, passive-aggressive. And aggressive, punching walls and stuff like that when I'd asked him to go. All dramatics, And anyway, come to Tuesday morning, I got up and went downstairs about 5:30 in the morning, as I normally would to get ready for work. Goes downstairs to let the dogs out. And I went into the safe box, discovered the £400 missing, and I thought, this is it. So I went upstairs and I demanded quite aggressively for him to leave. And I said I was going to call the police if he didn't leave. And his response to that was to repeatedly rape me, as I said, in and out of consciousness. God knows how many times, haven't got a clue. But through EMDR therapy, this has all come out. Didn't come out in court. It came out that he raped me once in court, but that's okay because at least I know exactly. So my mind is a lot more settled now with what happened. But what he done to me was he took away, and I hope I'm showing the vulnerability side of things, because there is a definite connection between child sexual abuse, vulnerable children, and vulnerable adults who are raped as well. Generally, non-vulnerable people are better able to protect themselves. But anyway,
it seems that those of us who have gone through abuse, a lot of us feel like there is a bullseye on our back. Because we seem to find situations, but predators out there, just like they know how to look for children who are vulnerable, they know how to find adults who are vulnerable as well.
Absolutely.
And a vulnerable person, male, female, child, or adult, is still a vulnerable person. So
absolutely. Man, woman, or child makes no difference. That's it. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit about Shatter Boys itself. And my recovery and how we've got to where we've got to today.
I would love that.
Oh, yeah.
Please.
Conviction, by the way. I did get a conviction, so he's guilty and he went to prison and he's on the sex offenders register, so that's a good thing. If you want me to talk about court, David, I'll happily do that. But just let me talk about this first. This is the, I suppose, a model of recovery, if you like, that's led us to where we are now at Shatter Boys. Basically, pre-rape, I was, apart from those few months, I was successful business-wise. I had a strong family, still have a strong family, great friends, great work in the community, great neighbours, well-respected, well-admired, a pillar of the community, if you like. And then the rape happened. And all of a sudden, you're surrounded by services, the police, the courts, the independent sexual violence advisor at the hospital, therapist, and all these strange people become your network of support. But that network of support only lasts for so long. These are paid professionals. So they're not your friends. But because of the rape and the changes in your personality and your character and the anger that goes with that, you're an angry person. Even though you might not look like it, but you are inside, you're angry with everyone. You're blaming everyone, apart from the one person who's responsible. But all of a sudden, you find your normal network, your family, your friends, your community, your neighbours, that all changes. Everything changes. And you go through, certainly in my case, I've went through 4 years of rebuilding my life to get to where I am today. And this is pre-trial, post-trial, I should say. So what basically happens with that isolation is you can embrace it and become a very lonely person and not move on with your life, or you can start to rebuild your life. What that meant for me was leaving the place, obviously, where that happened to me. There's no way I could stay there. That meant losing my business, because remember, I lived above the business. So I lost my business and my home, and then had to move to a new area. I moved around quite a bit, to be honest with you. A lot of that was about searching for the right safe network of people to be around. I finally got to a place where I've managed to rebuild the business a little bit, the dog grooming business, and the services that kind of back off, and they're designed to back off. They can only be there for so long, and that's quite right, and that's quite healthy in most cases. Well, and in my case, it certainly was healthy, even though at the time it felt like I was being abandoned, do you know? Yep. You kind of revert to a childlike kind of character, if you like. And where it left me was very, very lonely. But by rebuilding my new life and my new home, new work and everything else, new community, great neighbours, new friends, because you lose a lot of friends. Family will always be there, but they're different relationships, they're broken relationships in a lot of cases. Not because family aren't there to support you and love you, but because why should they be expected to understand what you're going through? Thank God they don't understand what you're going through, because you don't want anybody else to go through certainly what I've gone through, or Daniel or any of the lads. So basically, by rebuilding my life, it meant that I had time. And all of a sudden, Danny, who I hadn't seen for quite a long time, came back into my life and said, I've got this idea, Shatter Boys. But we needed to do it properly, and we needed to formulate a business model. And that sounds quite cold and calculated, but without that business model, we wouldn't have the strength that we have, you see. We actually get financial support as well from our sponsor, who's Graham Coffey & Co, solicitor in Manchester City Centre. So what's happened is, as the associates, the lads, whatever you want to call it, the friends, they've all come on board. The strength, and then he talks about the army. It is like a little army, because the determination, the steely determination, every one of those lads to go through a recovery that they're comfortable with and they're supported with, is left us where we are today. So in a way, what happened to me, I know I shouldn't have had to go through that, and it's quite a few years of my life that have been taken away from me. Personality's changed. I've become stronger. After going through a very weak period, I've become a lot stronger than I used to be. Luckily, I didn't end up on the streets, or like a lot of men do, or suicidal. I have had the suicidal attempts and the whole lot of it, and being hospitalised. And as I say, I've got PTSD, but I do manage that. I now have a very good therapist who I see on occasion for my PTSD, simply for the PTSD. And she's a fantastic help. She's Dr. Jill Brennan from Park House in North Manchester General Hospital, and she's a wonderful person. I also got great support from the St Mary's Sark Centre, which is a sexual assault referral centre. Not every city has a sexual assault referral centre. Manchester's Sark Centre is the first one in the country, and probably the biggest one and the best one in the country, if you like. But there are no services. There's very, very few services in England, UK generally speaking, for men. Where there are services such as Survivors UK, and that it's Survivors UK in London who actually started me on my campaign work, if you like, because their funding was from the Boris Johnson, the Lord Mayor's office, was stopped, and that was about 2 years ago. So they asked me to get involved as the face of adult male rape to try and regain their funding and do campaign work after campaign work, and that's what I did. And just by doing that, and that was an independent thing I'd done, not with Danny, not with Shatter Boys or anybody else, just done it by myself, and with the help of obviously the media and all those people, reporters and whatnot. And just by getting my story out there, it just empowered me, because I felt no longer will I be silenced. Why should I be silenced? I use the analogy, David, of if somebody is mugged in the street, or they have their house burgled, or I don't know, somebody beats them up in a pub, they'll quite happily go along to court if they find a culprit, and they'll celebrate the fact that they are got a conviction, if they get a conviction for that burglary or that attack or whatever it was. They'll talk about it in the pub until the cows come home. They'll tell their friends, their family, everyone will know about it. But when you go to court and you're a rape victim, you're given, it's imposed on you, anonymity. Now, that might protect children, and it's designed to protect children, but I do not see why there has to be anonymity and a lot of people will disagree with me on this, and it's controversial, I understand all that, but that's fine, because this is my life I'm talking about. I never wanted anonymity. On the final day in court, the day of the sentence, I was on the top floor of Bottom Crown Court, and I'm looking out this window. Windows, by the way, that have no openings, because in case you're suicidal and throw yourself out, which I was. But anyway, I'm looking out the window, and it was the very last day. And remember, as the victim, you don't go in the main door, you go in the back way. You know, sometimes with a bloody blanket over your head and all this, usher through a police car and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I looked out the window, and the various people were there supporting me. And it was a lady called Sue, who was the manager of the witness care team. And I'm still very much in contact with Sue. And Sue said to me, "John, you realise you've got anonymity for life?" And that was the first I've heard of it. And I thought, what the hell's that all about, anonymity? And then I'm driving home, and I looked out the window, as I was saying, and there's all these cameras there. It was a high-profile case, and there's all Sky News and the BBC and all these different media outlets and cameras and whatever. And I said to Sue, I said, "What are the cameras there for, Sue?" And she went, "They're there for you, John." And the overwhelming confusion, she just told me I got anonymity for life, and I wasn't allowed to speak with the media downstairs, when really what I wanted to do was go down and give an interview to the media to say exactly what he'd done to me, exactly what I'd been convicted of, and exactly what sentence he'd got on the whole lot of it, and expose his name out there. But I wasn't allowed to do that, you see, because that anonymity was imposed on me. And what I get from anonymity is shame and guilt. And that
I was just going to say that. How could you not have shame and guilt? You can't talk about what happened to you. How is that not shaming? You know? Absolutely. And it ties very much in with stigma in society. With the anonymity and the whole cloak and dagger sort of thing around rape and victims of rape who are silenced from day one, apart from in court when the police and the Crown Prosecution Service get their pound of flesh, if you're lucky enough to get the conviction. Like, with that, you've got society as a whole. And then you think to yourself, well, why can't I talk about this? And I spent years thinking, why can't I speak about it? Not that many years, mind you, a year and a half maybe. And I just woke up one day. I went back to the court a week later, by the way, and I had the anonymity waived. I demanded it be waived because I thought there would be legal implications. It turns out there aren't any. Well, there could be in certain cases, but not in mine. So I had it waived completely. And then that led me on to my road of campaigning. And with the campaign work has come strength. And with strength has come numbers. And with those numbers has come Shatter Boys. So I have a question for you, John. Say that I'm a guy. I have a great job.
Yeah.
I have a family, but I have this terrible secret of trauma about rape, and I am afraid of anybody finding out about it. I'm afraid of even dealing with it myself. I might drink a bit too much at night. I may take some drugs. I might go out and have casual sex, even though I'm still married. What would you say to something, and this is a question for both you and Daniel. Okay. What would you say to an individual who's dealing with this and dealing with the fear and the guilt and the shame? How would you respond to someone who is just starting to face these issues? What advice would you give them?
Okay, I'll come in on this one. So, what we do is not rocket science. No. The first thing what I would say to somebody when they tell me their stuff and make a disclosure is, I hear you. It's as simple as that, mate. I hear you.
And believe you.
And believe you. Because we know how we know how difficult and how traumatic it is to come and walk through our doors. So how we do it is we do a gently approach. So this guy gets in contact, hypothetically, who you're speaking about. Say he gets in touch through email. The good thing about him getting in touch through email is that he can remain anonymous. So what we do is, with that kind of sort of email support, what we do then is we start to build up a relationship and kind of sort of build that relationship up to a point and help build his confidence by, not that it's all about us, because I'm not saying it like that. So what we do is we use ourselves as examples. So whatever that guy's been through, so what I do is he might want to speak to a lad who's been through a similar situation. So I get one of our lads involved whose situation kind of matches up to his, get them two talking together, and it's about building that connection. And like I say, hearing what somebody's saying. So once that connection's built, we might build up to a telephone call then. So start talking on the phone. Getting to kind of know each other a bit and start building that trust up. Then when that trust is built up a bit, there's no time scale on this, or no time limit, by the way, because we're not governed by that. Build up to like kind of a face-to-face meeting then. So what we'll do is we'll say, right, where would you like to meet? So if we unless we know the person, we don't go and visit them at home, because that'd be dangerous, that kind of lone working stuff. So what we do is we'll meet up with them in a coffee shop. So we might just talk about football when we kind of get there, or whatever. And it's like I say, it's that connection building. So when they've like say myself and John might go and meet this person, start to get trust us a bit more. But at this point as well, this is why we do the videos, because we're all about transparency. So what we could say to someone on email or telephone is like, just have a look at our Facebook page, have a look at our videos, hear our stories, and they feel like then they get to know you kind of a little bit, get to know your stuff, and they think, because let me tell you, there's nothing special about me and John or any of the other lads. All we've done is kind of like spoke out. We've no like kind of superpowers or anything. We've just kind of found our voice, and that instills and inspires confidence, and you start to see the person's self-esteem kind of build. So after this one-to-one session, we might say, would you like to meet a couple of the other lads? So what we'll do is then, if they say agree to that, a couple of like about 4 of us or 5 of us will go down and meet this guy. It gets to know the other guys a bit, build that trust up again. Then what we'll do is build them up to like kind of coming into group then. So if you want to come to group, like first few times we'll go and meet them in town, pick them up, bring them to group so they feel safe, get them to get to know the other lads. Then once they're in kind of group, that can be that kind of sort of transition from, that's where that transition from victim to survivor happens.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. That's where that, it's all right.
I'm at someone else's house, and so sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. So that's where that transition and that growth and that relationship building starts to happen. So what group is it's like a little world. So it's like practicing for real life, all the dynamics that go on in group, all that kind of stuff. So it's like a training ground for getting your life back in a sense. So when they're at kind of group and stuff, we'll find out what other issues they may have and stuff they get help with, because we're not experts in everything or experts in anything else. We're just experts in peer support in a sense. So what we'll do then is we'll signpost people. So people say, right, you know what? I feel strong enough now, to get counselling, because maybe if somebody goes straight into counselling, this is our argument. So if for a person to go straight into counselling and kind of sort of open themselves up like a tin of beans and spill everything out, it might be like sort of diving off the high board at the swimming pool. So that is why I talk about the swimming pool analogy, like sort of, putting the armbands on someone and like kind of easing them into this stuff, because to deal with the trauma is it rocks your flipping world, mate. Do you know what I mean? So
yes, I do. Yes, I do.
It is not to be underestimated.
I think in a more general sense, though, for the general person out there, because we're in England, so somebody's in America or whatever.
Right, yeah.
My advice, David, to that person would be find somebody you're comfortable with telling. That one person that you can trust. It could be a professional, it could be a GP, a doctor, it could be a counsellor, or it could just be a family friend or a pal. So whoever that person that you really have got trust in, that they can keep that information where you want it kept initially, but don't suffer in silence is what I'm saying. Anybody who's a victim and hasn't disclosed to anybody, it's a recipe for disaster. So you need to disclose at some point when you feel right to somebody that you feel comfortable with disclosing to. Wherever that goes in each individual case, is really down to that person. They want to report to the police or whoever, they're entitled to do that. But not everybody wants to report to police. Not everybody wants to be seen as the victim. So it's what's right for that individual person, but do not suffer in silence.
You know, I have to disagree with you guys a little bit, because in this interview, listening to you guys, dudes, you guys are superheroes, and your voice is your superpower. You know, the fact that you guys have been able to find such a voice and be able to reach out and help other men who, I mean, it's no different in America than it is in the UK. There are no services here.
Yeah.
You go in and as a male rape victim and tell them that you're raped, they'll tell you you weren't raped, you just got lucky. And and it feeds the shame. And so you guys, I think you guys are superheroes, and I think your superpower is the fact that you have found your voice in such a way that you're not only able to speak out for yourself, but you're reaching out to so many other men who desperately need this help.
I'm filling up here. Will you stop?
John's nearly crying.
No. Thank you, though. It's nice to hear. It is nice to hear. It's lovely to hear. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's just worth mentioning, Danny's just reminded me, there's only 7 services in England for men, specialty services.
Specifically for males?
Yeah, specifically for males, yeah. Only 7. And just a little short tale I want to tell you.
Just over 20,000 for women, by the way.
20,000 for women, yeah. David, have you heard of the Rape Crisis UK?
I haven't. Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rape Crisis is the largest service for women in the country. And there's nearly a rape crisis centre it's counselling service in every single major city in the country. And in every city, basically. They're even in Ireland as well, Northern Ireland as well. So they're a huge organisation. And about a week after the rape, and this was my dalliance with self-harm and all that sort of stuff, suicide and all that thing. And I basically decided I was going to end it all. And I'd reported immediately, the following day. And I had no choice but to report because of the state I was in physically, like. So, and I don't think I would ever have doubted that I would report. I think I always would have reported, but that's just me. But anyway, I was sitting there one Sunday and I thought, I've had enough. I can't go through this. What is the damage that he's done is just too much. I can't live like this. So I decided to kill myself. Anyway, I rang up. The first number I could come across was the Rape Crisis, Manchester. And this is I'm not slagging them off here. I'm not putting them down because they do fabulous, fabulous work. But I just happened to get a very ridiculous person answer the phone. So I drank probably about half a bottle of whiskey, I think it was, or brandy, I can't remember. I don't even like those 2 drinks, but anyway, I did. And I took a load of pills. And then I just thought, no, hang on, what are you doing, John? You need to get help here. So I rang the Rape Crisis Centre. And the woman on the phone said to me, I'm sorry, this service is for women only.
That's, shelters. If you are a male who is being abused, and let me tell you that men are being abused in the house as much as women are. Absolutely. I mean, obviously not in the same households, but it's still, they're facing abuse. There is no place for them in America. There are the streets. You can become homeless, but there's no services out there for any men, for rape, for trauma, for anything. And so,
well, let's hope this interview starts to change that, David. Let's hope it starts to change.
Do you guys think that Shatter Boys will be involved in bringing about that change in the UK? It certainly sounds like it to me.
I'd like to think so. If we can offer advice to other organisations or people who want to start an organisation, well, then we certainly can. We don't have to be in the country to do that. Yeah. We can, with the days of technology like this right now, we can communicate and offer all the advice that we can give and any help we can give and all sorts of stuff we can do. So, let's hope we have started to make an inroad into America, yeah.
Well, I would hope if there are people out there listening who understand male sexual trauma and male rape and all of that, if any of you are interested in starting an organization, I would highly encourage it. I mean, just listen to this interview, reach out to these men and find out how they did it and how they did their business model. And a business model is not cold. It is just a way of, I mean, you can't do this haphazardly.
No.
And so it's necessary. And I think that in the trauma in being a survivor and working, I don't know if it's like this in the UK. I would be willing to bet it is. Everybody is working separately from each other, and everyone's trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. That's exactly how it is in England.
And we need to all come together, stop reinventing the wheel, and build a damn spaceship to get us off this point, get us out of here,
Absolutely.
And so,
but like all these disjointed services, not only are they not working together, I mean, it's getting a little bit better in England, but they're almost in competition with each other. From what we see, and as Danny said, it's not rocket science. It really is not rocket science. And I think there's too much emphasis on clinical, too much emphasis on psychiatry, psychology, the whole lot of it. What about good old-fashioned peer support? Good old-fashioned friendships. What's wrong with that? That's what builds communities in the first place, is it not?
Well, and that's what gives us the foundation. I mean, therapy is great, but you can't live with your therapist. And
no.
I mean, you go see a therapist, even if you go see a therapist twice a week, there are times in there, especially with this, especially when you're first dealing with it, that you need someone who is there that you can reach out anytime.
Anytime, anytime. And that's what we do at Shatter Boys. The phones they're never switched off. It's anyone, anytime, a day or night, who want, within reason. We need a night out every now and again. But it's that communication is there all the time. The support's there all the time. And believe me, nearly every day there'll be somebody in crisis and that needs some support. And we're there for them 100%. If it's not me and Danny personally, it's a few of the other lads. And it's the lads helping the lads out. It's men working together to help each other out because they have a common link.
Well, and as you and as the three of us were talking before this interview this morning, I said that the problem that I have, that I see in America, is that everybody wants to be the one to expose this and the one to fix this. And I have always contended it's going to take every single one of us. We're all part of the one. It's going to take all of us. And
no one is more important.
Exactly. So where do you guys see yourselves going in the future? I mean, you've explained what you're doing now. What are your hopes and goals for the future?
What I'll kind of sort of start off with is we're building up links with other groups in other towns across the UK. So we're in the process of building up a relationship with someone called Nottinghamshire Survivors. There's a lady called Mandy Copeland and Mickey Summers. They've got, I think it's testimonies of, I think they've got about 500 survivors behind them. 600 survivors behind them. And they've done this like kind of sort of single-handedly. Exposed the social services system in Nottingham. They've exposed the council. They've exposed the police. And they basically, through not shutting up and having a voice, they brought them to the knees and got them to kind of sort of admit guilt in a sense. And they are, all this has been fed into, so we've got a national inquiry into child abuse at the moment, run by Alexis J. And that's been kind of like sort of being investigated by them. So it just shows, if you've got the tenacity, to kind of like keep at it,
the energy,
you can kind of make changes. So we're linking up with them. They're actually coming up. Some of them are coming up to group from Nottingham to Manchester on Tuesday. So building that relationship there and hoping to plant a Shatter Boys peer support group in Nottingham. We've also, like I said, we're moving over to Liverpool. There's also an organisation called Voicing CSA that's run by a friend of mine, Phil Lafferty. And what Phil does, he's going around different towns in the UK, inviting people along, general public survivors. They have like a microphone at the front. They get people who want to like kind of come up and like speak out about what's kind of sort of happened to them. So we're linking in with them. So the people that come to see them, we're hoping to get into the towns that they've been in and like kind of sort of plant the peer support group there. So, there's something for them. So we're just in the process of what we're saying is we're putting, we're trying to put the unity and community back into this survivors community because in England, the community, the survivors community, from what we've seen, is like quite fractured as well, just like the services. So how we work is we don't get involved in any of the politics. We don't get involved in all that crap, because we're not about that. We're about offering support and like kind of sort of building up networks. And with us not getting involved in them politics, that's like that's given us a big kind of sort of strength, really, to kind of do what we're doing. So we want to get as many people on board as possible. So like I say, we've got a 5-year plan. That we're going to try and get peer support groups planted in areas where there's a distinct lack of support for males, of what you said in intro, of which there is kind of sort of many. So I think a lot of people underestimate us because we're like kind of a small group and stuff, but that when people underestimate you, that kind of gives you a power as well, because we're tenacious, and if you are a paedophile or a sex offender who is living in the UK, you should be looking over your shoulder.
Absolutely.
And when I'm saying looking over your shoulder, I don't mean we're going to get violent and do some vigilantes, or you're going to do someone in. Why I kind of sort of say that is because, we're encouraging men to speak out about what's happened to them. Because you see so much in the press about paedophiles. All you've got to do is go to the corner shop for a pint of milk, go to the counter, put your milk down on the counter, and there's a newspaper underneath it with, some paedophile.
In America, it's on the milk bottles.
Yeah. So what we kind of want to do is this is why we do the media stuff. Because I'm sick of seeing paedophiles in the flipping media. Yeah. What I want to see is, I want to see the people who they've hurt in the paper thriving and kind of sort of taking the life back. And less focus, media focus on the paedophiles, and more focus on us as a survivor community pulling together, healing, and saying, we're going to expose this, and we're not putting it up with it any longer. And I really like what you say about no one person can smash this. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's got to be a jointed effort of kind of sort of smashing the back out of this with a big hammer, which is that voice that you talked about, that superpower, that voice.
That's exactly. And the thing, I so agree with you. I mean, people get hurt and you don't hear anything about the victim. But you see the perps' faces all over. You hear all about them. It's almost as if they're promoted. And the survivor doesn't, and if they do talk about it, and especially in America, it's generally negative. And it happens to one person, but you do it to one person. How many other hundreds are watching that one person who are now going to be afraid to come forward and talk because of what they saw happen to someone else?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We're breaking the silence, basically, David. That's what we're doing. We're doing our best to break silence.
You're doing an awesome job. I mean,
thank you.
You're doing an awesome job. And for me, it gives me hope, because as a man who has been raped repeatedly, and not as a child, but I almost, again, we talked about that. I put myself in a bad situation when I was 19, was at a party. 2 guys were trying to handcuff me to a bed. God only knows what would have happened had they succeeded. And the only thing that saved me was a kid, that this black guy that banged on the door. He had to have been 19, and just opened the door and said, "Is everything okay in here?" And by then I was almost near tears and had to say, "No, things are not okay in here." And it took one person getting involved that helped. And that's, even if you are not a sexual abuse survivor, and even if you are a human that has even an ounce of compassion, you will get behind this effort, the Shatter Boys effort, and help with this, to help out for people who really do need a voice, and get ridiculed when they do come forward. They get attacked when they come forward. And as we're showing in this interview, a voice is so important to have. I mean,
crucial.
because everyone is worthwhile, and nobody's trauma outweighs anybody else's trauma. If you have trauma, your individual trauma is your trauma, and it's important. And
absolutely. Do you know what I learned a long time ago, David? It was actually a group therapy session, and somebody mentioned, we were talking about our various abuses that we'd gone through, and I was talking about mine and whatnot. And another guy at this thing, I'll never forget him, he said to me, John, there's no hierarchy on pain. And it's never left me that, because there is no hierarchy on pain.
No, there's not. And my pain does not negate nor amplify your pain. Your pain is your pain. And
absolutely,
we all need to realize that we live in a traumatic world. It is hard to live in this world and not have trauma of some sort at some point in your life. And some of us have gone through extreme trauma, and we need to honor that, not only with each other, but really with ourselves.
Yeah.
And realize you're not to blame. You guys are not to blame for what happened to you, you know? And I know that survivor guilt and that blame game that we play with ourselves, especially as men, you know? And we're blaming ourselves as we're pouring the alcohol down ourselves to try and numb ourselves out from the pain that nobody is willing to say exists. And you guys are doing an amazing job, and I'm really hoping that what you're doing in the UK actually extends to here in the United States, because right now there is no services, there is nowhere to go if you're a man. And therapists, I mean, well, we're coming down. We have about 5 minutes left, and so I want to give you guys an opportunity to talk about, you know, anything you guys feel that this is the last 5 minutes. So this is what you're going to be leaving people with. So the floor is yours. I just need about 30 seconds at the very end to thank everybody. And
so there is something that I'd like to say. Surprise. What I'd like to talk about is we have had a tremendous amount of support from survivors, but I'd just like to touch on non-survivors as well. So it's all right, us lots kind of talking about it, because I don't want to exclude people who are non-survivors as well, because we've had massive support from people who are non-survivors who are like kind of sort of really encouraging us and stuff, and like sort of pushing us forward. Because the thing is, a lot of them are the key as well, because these are like sort of normal members of society, and this is the people who we want to educate as well. That sexual abuse is out there, sexual abuse is happening. Do you know what I mean? It's happening in the home. You know, it's happening flipping everywhere. It's still happening to this day. You know, and those people who don't know, and
not just with children, with adults, and that means men and women. It's happening to everybody right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So no, it's okay. So like I was saying, we've had a lot of kind of tremendous support from like non-survivors, and you know, from everything what we talk about, and we say like sort of you know, about us being like sort of experts by experience. You know, that's not to say that the opinion of non-survivors is not valuable to us, because it really is. And we'd like to include non-survivors in the kind of sort of stuff that we're doing, and kind of sort of get them on board, because you know, we've all got to work together as a like kind of community, and you know, help like sort of raise awareness. You know, and that's why we do this stuff, to raise awareness, to you know, encourage other men to speak out. So I don't think anybody. No, well, I don't think. I know that nobody has ever died by coming to our service and speaking out. Do you know what I mean? They might have been flipping terrified and in PTSD episode and stuff like that, but you know, it will not kill you speaking out, but it may kill you not speaking out. And what I'd like to say is that we do provide a safe space for men to come, whether that be online or in person, to come and break their silence. And you know, you will be heard if you come to Shatter Boys UK, and you will be believed if you come to Shatter Boys UK, and you will be supported if you come to Shatter Boys UK. You know, until you're kind of sort of ready to leave, That's why we don't have any involvement or funding from the NHS or service. We're not interested in that, because the thing is, we don't want to taper down or water down what we are doing. We don't want someone standing over us saying you can't do this, you can't do that, because when somebody comes to us, they are in charge of their pathway. They are in charge of what they disclose, how long they stay for, because the minute we start telling people what to do when they come to us, that's smacks of abuse. Yeah. That's what's happened before. Control's been taken away from them. So it's so important that when someone comes to us, they're in full control of their journey.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're almost out of time. So why don't you guys give people your contact information, your Facebook, your website? Yeah. How can people contact you?
Yeah. So the best way to kind of contact us is via email. So it's shatterboysuk@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter. We're Shatter Boys UK on Twitter. But the website's kind of we've got the website's not as best as it can be, to be honest with you, because we've not had the money for it. But we're having a website done. But it's Shatter Boys UK at WordPress. But I would really kind of encourage you to look on our Facebook page, because that's our kind of best medium, best platform to get stuff out there, because on there is videos of us telling our truths, talking about all kind of survivor issues, and that's Shatter Boys on Facebook. So just check us out, give us a like, and just see what we're up to, and kind of support us, whether you're a survivor or not a survivor. Get yourself on there and see what we're about.
Gentlemen, I just want to thank you. I mean, you guys were amazing. The work that you're doing is amazing. It is so necessary. I mean, as a male sexual survivor myself, it is just amazing what you guys are doing. And I thank you so much for sharing your time. I know it's a bit late there. And it's just been amazing. Now, again, that's Shatter Boys UK. And check them out on Facebook, Twitter. They have some amazing things. But we have 15 seconds left. And so I just wanted to say thank you for tuning in to davidshurter.com. You can find us at awakeradio.us and check out our venue for amazing things. And thank you and have a great night.